If you've ever wanted to try psychedelic therapy, or if you just started psychedelic therapy, or if even you're afraid to start psychedelic therapy, but you're a little bit curious about what it's like, then this video is going to be for you. I'm going to be detailing my most recent experience with psychedelic therapy, specifically MDMA and psilocybin. And I'm also going to be doing my best to address the question, why aren't psychedelics for everyone? I'm not an expert and I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here to tell you what's right and what's wrong. I'm simply here to share what I've done and what I've learned in the hopes that, maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't. So about exactly 3 months ago, I did my third MDMA therapy session. And this time I combined MDMA with psilocybin mushrooms. Penis envy psilocybin mushrooms. I took 125 milligrams of MDMA, which is basically just the first dose of a traditional MDMA therapy session. The second generally is 75 milligrams. This time I decided to cut down on that because the penis envy mushrooms are a little bit stronger than the mushrooms I've done in the past. So I did 125 mg of MDMA, and then I also did 5 grams of penis envy mushrooms. In the past, I've done up to 6 grams of golden teacher mushrooms, and so this isn't an exact conversion, but 5 grams of penis envy mushrooms, some people will say that it is about twice as potent as golden teacher. And so that was the reason that I cut back on the MDMA a little bit, just to, take precautions. I don't go into these sessions looking to get blasted or get super high, anything like that. The point is to go just a little bit beyond my limit, but stay within a zone that isn't just going to be me lying in bed drooling. I had a professionally trained shaman there with me the whole time, guiding the experience, making sure that I was okay, and really just somebody that is an expert in sort of this navigation of the psyche and trauma and all this stuff. But most importantly, someone that I feel safe with. And I don't just mean safe in that they're not going to try and hurt me or anything like that, but I also mean safe in that I trust that they are doing their own work and that therefore they can hold space for me to do my own as well. My intention going into the session was to grieve the death of my father and really just to accept whatever comes up. I've found that is the best intention I can go in with. So I start with the 125 milligrams of MDMA. I sit with that about an hour and a half. I am not feeling it super intensely. I can feel, I can feel that something has shifted, but it's not, it's not very intense yet. And so at this point, I take the 5 grams of penis envy. And within 5 or 10 minutes, the experience goes from being about a 2 in intensity to a full-blown 10. It felt like my brain was injected with steroids, and all of a sudden, it was so intense that I felt a loss of control. And this is the part where it gets a little bit tricky. And before we continue, I just want to let you know that toward the end of the video, there's going to be a surprise giveaway. Stay tuned to the end, or if you're not enjoying the video so far, just skip ahead. I think the best way to describe what I was experiencing is that it felt like someone else was in control of my brain. It just so happened that that someone was just very goofy and very, for lack of a better word, dumb. But because I'm so used to being in my thoughts, it felt as though I was dumb. And so the challenge then became not identifying with what was happening. And what I mean by that is not saying, oh, this is now who I am, but instead saying, oh, this is just something I am experiencing. Because the minute that my brain stopped working the way I want it to and the way I feel comfortable with it working, my default is to think, oh, I've fucked up. I took too much, I went too far, all those stories that you hear people telling themselves. And so the work in that moment becomes not resisting it, right? Not saying, I'm okay, this isn't not tightening, but rather just relaxing into it and saying, this is probably going to pass, but if it doesn't, then let's go. Right? If this is just who I am now, can I live with that? And I'll be honest, I've done a lot of psychedelics, and this was one of the only 2 times in my experiences with them that I felt like, oh fuck. It's like waking up one day and getting a call from your parents and them telling you that they're not your real parents. Like it's that big of a shift in reality. And that can be a very scary place to exist in. And it was at this moment when I realized, oh, this is why it's not for everyone. Because even though this part only lasts 10 or 20 minutes, this is the part where most people, if they're not prepared, will just panic and hit the exit button and try to escape and, unfortunately be stuck in that and just have a terrible experience. Even though I came close to that, right, I did feel fear and I did at one point think like, oh, maybe I just ruined my life, right? That was a real thought that I was contemplating. There was also always in the back of my mind, but just remember to breathe, man. Just remember to breathe. You've been here before. You know it's never permanent. So just let it pass. But again, that's a lot easier said than done, right? It's like if I said, hey, I'm going to toss you into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and there's going to be great white sharks circling you. But just remember, they've been fed. They're not going to try and do anything to you. So just relax, just let it pass. It's okay. In theory, I can do that. But once you toss me into the fucking ocean, it's going to become a lot harder for me to stay calm and to just breathe through that experience. So after this stage of fear and panic, that's when the real shit started to come. It started with visuals of empty rooms and sort of dark corners, empty spaces, empty cabinets, empty drawers with cobwebs, just a lot of emptiness. And it wasn't clear to me, right, if these were places that I had been or if they were places that I was making up in my mind. But what was clear was that these places were empty and no one had been in these places for a really long time. And so what was going on in that moment was that I was entering into what I call my inner child space. If you don't like the term inner child, or if it just is, it's hard for you to follow that, I totally get it. And what inner child means to me is this version of me from the past that in my case is a small boy that I today reject. Right? This is a little kid that has a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings about what he's experienced or what we've experienced. And because there are very intense and difficult things to deal with or to sit with, the version of me today is like, that's not real. That's BS. I don't want to hear it. And so what was happening is that I was entering into his space, which is why it was so empty and just barren and abandoned, is because, being honest, I don't have the best relationship with that inner child. And I don't visit him often. And by visit, what I mean is that I don't sit and just have a conversation with that kid about what he's feeling, about what he needs, about what's going on, right? Just bringing him into the present day is something that I don't do enough of. And so once I went into that space and it was like, oh shit, okay, here we are. What are those thoughts and feelings that I haven't been giving you room to express? That's when the trauma started to surface. And that is when I started to feel all the shit that I experienced in childhood, but wasn't really able to process because I was alone in that experience. And what that was an overwhelming sensation of being a burden and of just being a lost child that isn't going to be okay. I felt like no matter what I do, I'm never going to be able to take care of myself. I felt just this heaviness, this darkness, that things aren't going to work out for me, that things aren't going to be okay, that I am not okay, that I'm always just going to be a problem for people. Which obviously in present day isn't really the truth, but if I reflect on my childhood, at one point in time, that really was my truth. And so I spent 2, 3, maybe 4 hours in that headspace, just feeling all of that grief and all of that pain and all of that abandonment, just really witnessing this is what my experience was like, in the way that perhaps at that age I needed someone else to witness it because it was too much for me to witness and bear on my own. And throughout all of this, I also want to reiterate that there is an amazing person there guiding me and helping me through all of this, whether that is by holding my hand, hugging me, lying next to me, and just kind of rubbing my back, like all the things that a little kid needs that person is there to help me if I want them to. If I'm confused, if I'm scared, just anything that is coming up that I don't feel like I can handle by myself, I can bring to that person. And I did. And that's why, even though it was a really long time to sit in such a heavy state, it was manageable. And so after this stage, I sort of thought, okay, maybe it's starting to wind down, maybe it's over. I went in and out of some conversation with my guide, right? And it was during one of those out portions where I was just sort of sitting with myself that a memory came back to me. All right, so if you made it this far, I want to pause real quick to let you know that I'm giving away 3 coaching sessions each to 3 different people that message me on Instagram. The first 3 people that messaged me on Instagram after watching this video, letting me know what their favorite part of the video was. I'm doing this because there have been so many times in my life where I wanted help, but I just couldn't afford it. And so I just kind of felt stuck. And if you're in that spot, even if you're not, even if you can't afford it, doesn't matter. The point is, I don't want anybody who might be in that position to actually be stuck. So message me on Instagram. If you're one of the first 3 people to do it, you'll get 3 free coaching sessions, 1 hour long each. All right, back to the video. And it was a very recent memory of just arriving into the country at my brother's apartment and sort of not having enough time before the session to go grocery shopping and just kind of pick up some stuff for my Airbnb. And so my brother said, "Hey, it's late. Don't worry about going to the grocery store. Here's a carton of eggs and some other stuff if you need it." I had that memory and it just broke me, because here I was having experienced 4 hours of I'm a burden and nobody cares about me. And then this memory comes up of, hey man, someone does care about you a lot. You're not alone and you do deserve to receive. And at that point, I just broke and I started weeping, man. I started grieving, wailing. I started sobbing for about an hour and a half nonstop, thinking about my brother really does care about me. And not only that, but I earlier this year lost my father, and he was one of the other people in my life that I felt that with. Right? Just somebody that no matter what I do, no matter what happens to me, he's always going to be there if I need his help. And my dad is no longer with us, but my brother is. And so it just sort of was this moment of realizing, like, wow, part of me does feel alone. And part of me, at least part of me, tells myself that I am alone, right? Because being alone isn't a feeling exactly. It's more of a story that I tell myself, but it is a story I tell myself. And I don't have my dad to protect me anymore, but I do have my brother, and my brother has me. And so there was this duality of like, fuck man, I did lose somebody very important to me, but I still have someone just as important to me. Even now it's making me feel a little bit emotional, but after that, it was over and it did finally reach its end. So I spent a little bit of time talking with my guide about, what is this loneliness? What does it mean? My guide was really the one that explained to me that loneliness is not a feeling. Loneliness is a thought. That thought creates a feeling or an emotion. So when I tell myself I feel lonely or I am lonely, that for me creates an emotion of sadness. In reality, one is never alone. There is always nature, everything, at least in this philosophy or in this way of looking at things, everything carries energy. And so there is never a time when anybody is actually alone. There is only times where people or myself, we tell ourselves that we're alone. Which brings me to the integration session that I had with my guide. The biggest thing that came up was inner child work, right? I mentioned that me and my inner child don't have the best relationship. And so that became my work. When these things come up, to not escape them and to not diminish them, but instead to sit down and try to have a conversation or open a dialogue with that part of myself that is bringing these things up. And I have to say, this has probably been the hardest thing that I've had to and continue to integrate, because it's just not, it doesn't come natural to me to say, hey, little 8-year-old Nick, how are you doing? How are you? Like, it just, there's resistance inside of me to that experience. So it's been challenging, but at the same time, there's no denying its reality, right? Because I just witnessed this world of hurt and this world of emptiness. And so the intensity of that experience has helped me in some ways to take that inner child and those exercises with the inner child a little bit more seriously. In fact, if you didn't already notice, in this bottom corner, there's a teddy bear's head popping out. And the reason that I, a 27-year-old man, have a teddy bear in my bedroom is that it is a way for me to have something to hold, have something to talk to when I am doing these inner child exercises, so that it's not just me sitting alone thinking, okay, I guess I'm talking to you, right? It's just one degree further of like, all right, man, if I'm buying into this, then this fucking teddy bear is gonna be the external representation of that inner child. So anyway, that was my experience. If you have any questions, if you want to share your own experience, feel free to do that in the comments below. But otherwise, thanks for stopping by, and I will see you next time.